Thank you, James. Thank you, Charles. 53% of Saudis, please guys, want to invest in the next 5 years. 53%, extraordinary number. As you heard from Charles also, the future is out there. We've seen the future. Each of us have seen it in terms of Saudi concepts. It's just not distributed enough. And it's a little bit, I'm a Londoner. It's a little bit like London was 30, 40 years ago. You know, if you ask people, tell us about British food and modern British cuisine in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have it. I had no idea what that was. And Tom Aitken's on stage later on. Tom is very much personifying that now. So in a way, it's like London was that time ago. We weren't ready for our own food and our own concepts. We were importing them from the US and indeed from the immigrant community, the Italians, the Indians, the Pakistanis. I'm joined on stage by three very talented people, I'm pleased to say, so I'll let them introduce themselves. Andrew, please.
Hi, my name's Andrew Williamson. I'm the Senior Director of Retail at Red Sea Global. And I've been in the region since 2004 working. I was head of JLL's retail for about 8 years, and I was previously at CAFT for a couple of years.
Hashim?
I'm Hashim Al-Attas, the CEO of Leylaty Group, a family-owned and operated business founded in 1948. We operate in 3 segments: banqueting, catering, and restaurants. Most of our restaurants are homegrown, occupying the fine dining space and some QSR.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abdulhalim Awlia. I'm from NEOM company, specifically from the hotel development team in NEOM, and I'm in charge of overlooking the operations at pre-opening of the hotels across NEOM.
It's a great collection here. We've got Hashim, Hashim representing Leylaty, which has, you've got over 30 years of trading here. It's a wonderful, you can give a good perspective over the few years. And Andrew, you've been leasing here for 2 decades as well. And of course you've got Halim, you're representing Saudi youth here. Forgive us here, but I think you're going to be the youngest guy on stage today. So it's a hell of a responsibility.
Doubtful.
And of course you're working for NEOM, which is
Yes.
an extraordinary project and very inspiring project. I'm going to ask the first question about growth in the kingdom and what this growth will look like. Actually, I'm going to ask you that. What the growth will look like. Where is it? Is it malls? Is it the giga projects that these guys have worked on? Is it neighborhood or is it freestanding? What do you think?
I see growth in all parts of the F&B sector. I mean, as tourism grows domestically and internationally in Saudi, we see a lot of growth in all of these segments, whether there's the luxury development projects or the main cities. I see, for example, a lot of growth in the fine dining in the main cities in these new luxury projects, as well as casual. So definitely growth in the F&B sector.
So you heard earlier, Simon said, is the high-end saturated? You have Kuru, which has a number of wonderful VIP guests, which we can't talk about, but it's a marvelous restaurant and award-winning, right? So do you think the market's saturated? Jeddah, I guess you're closer to.
No, I believe that still there is a lot of potential for fine dining restaurants, but location, conceptualization, positioning is extremely important.
How old is Toki? Toki's Chinese restaurant.
Toki is 22 years old.
Wow.
Yes. 22 years old young.
Right, and was it one of the first Chinese restaurants in Jeddah of that type?
Yes,
I guess?
exactly.
Right, cool. Andrew, growth. You're lucky you've worked at CAFT, of course, and that's launched and it is making an impact already. You're now working hard at Red Sea Global. How do you see growth in the future in the kingdom?
Well, I think there's obviously a massive potential for growth. Red Sea Global, we have at Red Sea on Shura Island, we have a retail and dining area. At Triple Bay and Amalis, something similar. So these are like small villages. But we also have 2 communities within our projects that are where the staff live and all the people work in the retail and the F&B. So there's over 20,000 people in each of those. So that also has a level of F&B and retail in it. So we have all different levels of F&B, different concepts, from luxury to small local concepts to mid-range to casual. So really, it's the gamut of all kinds of F&B that we're looking at across all our projects. So
That's a direct question, which I haven't prepared you for. That is my style. Forgive me.
Yeah.
You obviously have to convince people like Leylaty to come to Red Sea Global. It's easier for them to choose a corner site in Riyadh and Jeddah, right? Why come all the way to see you at Red Sea Global?
I can honestly say that I absolutely love my job, and it's the easiest job in the world I've ever experienced in my life. I bring people up to our site, and anybody who has had the opportunity to see the presentation of what we're doing at Red Sea Global, and actually I get people to come to site to see the reality on the ground. And I can say from around the world, everybody that comes, they say, where should I go, what should I do? I say, just come and see the site. And the immediate reaction as soon as I finish the tour with them, we're here.
So Halim, before I come to Halim, forgive me for dwelling on this, but Hashim, the giga projects, the real perspective, is this something you would engage with in the future?
Definitely in the future, for sure.
That's good news, Andrew.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Halim, please. So you're based at NEOM, and we can understand that because of what's happening at NEOM, you would think that the perspective is entirely NEOM, but you're from Jeddah originally. So where do you see growth in the market within the kingdom?
Well, so I see growth in the market, so everywhere. Let me just say for starters, I mean, long term, the growth will be in most of the giga projects in the kingdom. For example, in NEOM, one of the biggest locations, Turjena, and the growth potential for F&B there is extraordinary. We have allocated more than 42,000 square kilometers just for F&B retail. So for the long run, for the future, the F&B market will be great in the giga projects. But also in Jeddah or Riyadh, the growth will be led by the younger generation, by even the youth who are younger than me, who are developing new concepts every day. Every time I visit Jeddah, coming from NEOM in the weekend, I see new developments happening, new concepts happening, coffee shops, new restaurants. One of the fastest growing there is the fast casual dining in Jeddah, but also fine dining is catching up very quickly. We're a little bit behind Riyadh in the fine dining, but we are catching up very quickly.
Halim, how old are you, Halim? Can I ask you? Forgive me.
Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, please.
I'm 29.
Right, so 29. So the people in this room, who as a 29-year-old was thinking of investing in F&B? I mean, really? Maybe you had a dream of a franchise of some sort, maybe, but we were doing our degrees, perhaps, and our first jobs. But 53% of your generation want to invest in this sector. What's at the core of that? Why?
I think there's a sense of pride among Saudis that they want to carve their own careers by themselves, and they want to be free. And they have this sense of pride of creating something and being proud and responsible for developing something. And maybe this is different than what we're seeing in other markets, but in Saudi, entrepreneurship is one of the biggest trends and trajectory, and I have a lot of colleagues and friends who are investing in local pop-ups in Jeddah, who are not necessarily experts in the industry, but they have the financial support and the financial acumen to develop casual dining, like a burger joint or like a coffee shop. So so as they are more experienced in the industry, I think they would tend to open more restaurants and maybe go into the fine dining.
Right. Hashim, your family have been in this business for over 30 years, and you have a very strong banqueting and events business, of course, which has a great reputation. Just following the point on from Halim, what Halim said was that, and you heard it from Charles before, that Dubai, it felt like the expats were calling the shots, right? Because they were the majority population, and because Dubai is built on investment and property, right? Do you feel that's different in your home country?
Definitely. It's locally driven, and local content is extremely important. Because the locals are all of our customers, so we really have to adapt and strategize towards that.
Sure. But why, I was trying to probe that with Ali, but why restaurants? So there's so many other things you can invest in. What's the level of interest? What drives you to come into the restaurant business?
Well, the restaurant business is something that we were born into, and we're very passionate about. We know it very well. We understand it very well. So it's and there's a lot of potential in this sector if you know what you're doing.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. I guess the question, if I can ask you, Andrew, you meet a lot of people that come to see you and interested in tenancies in the Red Sea Global. Mm-hmm. How do you approach that? Are you reaching out internationally as well as domestically? How wide are you throwing the net?
We're throwing the net globally.
Right.
And we are a mix of, as I was saying before, all the different types of F&B, as people have been talking about earlier, but a key part of it is also the influence of Saudi, and we are trying to create a destination that's global, yet at the same time is reflective of Saudi culture and heritage, and how the restaurants that are global that bring that in, we're discussing how they would bring that into their concept, and then concepts that are locally created or also using all the various regions of Saudi Arabia. So in my experience learning, I've been living in Saudi for the last 3 years, I've learned a lot. I was here a lot before, but just the regions, and people hadn't traveled that much before between the regions, so everybody's really excited from the Saudis that I speak to about learning about the different foods from the different regions. So how we bring that into Red Sea Global, and ours is a project that is inviting people globally to come and see Saudi Arabia for the first time, and really experience the best of Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Sharing an insect.
So that's really an important part of what we're doing is local farms and helping local farmers and all of that.
Do you put aside, Westfield famously used to put aside 10% of the portfolio to lease to local concepts to generate local talent. Are you doing the same thing at Red Sea Global? Are you putting aside a certain allocation for that?
No specific amount, but we have areas that are set aside to be the best in class of Saudi F&B designers, artists.
And do you feel that I guess if I come as a tourist to one of the hotels at Red Sea, and these are spectacular hotels, is there a belief that I will want to try a local Saudi cuisine? Do you think that's the case?
I believe there's a big part of that. And I know there's a lot of people who are going around the country now studying the different regions and learning about them, and then trying to integrate those into brands, right? And I think that's as a tourist myself into new countries, I mean, I want to go there and experience the food that I haven't tried, and in a local culture with the real local ingredients, because it tastes completely different when it's local.
Halim and I were talking about somewhere. Dean was on stage just now at Al-Ula. And Al-Ula is quite an extraordinary concept. You have to visit Al-Ula as an extraordinary destination. And they're also trying to shape their F&B, of course, to reflect the heritage and the history of that wonderful destination. And I actually can't think of a match for Al-Ula anywhere in the Gulf. It is an extraordinary project because of its own character. But you've been to somewhere, and you were talking about what somewhere was particularly good at.
Yeah, so I visited somewhere there. Some people don't like it. Some people enjoy the food there. I particularly enjoyed the food there. So they try to create something unique. Our typical Arabian food, for example, grape leaves. We are used to having it stuffed with rice, but they do it with stuffed with something unique that has never been done before, like brisket. And I've seen it done in a couple new restaurants now in Jeddah. So they're taking some of the basic recipes that Saudis and the Arab people are known to, and we do it at home, but then redefining it and trying to elevate it to something more. So I mean, when it comes to the even food and beverages space, creativity, is sky's the limit with creativity.
So I guess at NEOM you'll do the same thing. I know you're not that close to that part of it, but do you think that they'll again leave aside an element of it for the local concepts?
I'm sure at NEOM there will be plenty of opportunities for growth for the international market as well, for local brands. I mean, I know that we would love to partner with local chefs and partnering with local F&B academy, culinary academies to develop chefs, Saudi chefs, local chefs to come to NEOM. So definitely taking the initiatives as a Saudi company to bring aboard the local homegrown food would be a priority for us.
Right, so the Culinary Arts Commission, if anyone's aware of the Culinary Arts Commission, they've collected recipes from around the nation, and now they're shaping us. They've got a wonderful bank of this information.
Yeah, I mean, my uncle is one of the people who participated in this tour around Saudi to standardize the recipes. Saudi is a large country, and in different region in Saudi, you might have the same food, but then with different recipes and different techniques. So they're trying to standardize the recipes, and then, I mean, this is a larger initiative of trying to export our food to the international market. We need to standardize the recipes and then the brand for the food to export it.
All right, Hashim.
If I may add to that, I believe, and as my colleagues, the Saudi cuisine is very rich, and there's so many regions, and each region has different ingredients. So I believe as more exposure, international exposure comes to the market, operators will be able to see what really works and what really is applicable to travel. And I believe after that, we're going to start to see more local brands with Saudi cuisine, whether it's casual, upper casual, or even fine dining with maybe a modern twist, go international. But I definitely see that.
Can I have your advice, please, on this? Because this is something that keeps us awake at night a little bit. But do you think that, maybe both work, but do you think that the future is Saudi traditional, taking that heritage, that history, and really working that up? Because no Khaliji food has that broad range as Saudi because of what you're growing here, right? Or is it that it should fuse and combine with other cuisines, as Somewhere has done, as Maze has done, and other restaurants as well?
I think it's a combination. I mean, it's going to be a combination. There's some concepts that are going to be probably more traditional, yet well prepared to go international. We're going to see other concepts which have modern influence or influence from other Saudi cuisines. So it's going to be a combination of concepts, I believe, going out. But definitely, we will see some Saudi cuisine going international very soon.
Right, we're drifting that question about exporting, which is really interesting because Dubai has exported brands, unquestionably. So Gaia and Maine have gone internationally. That's terrific. But we've yet to see a Khaliji concept go international. We've seen Levantine food, Lebanese food go around the world, right? But not Khaliji. So this would be it's quite a step, isn't it? You think that's achievable?
I do think it's achievable, but again, the Saudi cuisine is very extensive, and each region have its own recipes. So it's very difficult to put it under one umbrella. And I believe with more exposure of international tourism here, the operators will be able to see what really works. I also believe that there's going to be brands going international, which are local, homegrown concepts,
right,
but not Saudi cuisine.
Right.
I also believe that that's going to happen. We are one of those operators, so we have international expansion plans for our Kuru brand. And I believe that there's many other operators as the market starts to develop and mature. We're going to see a lot of Saudi investors. There's a lot of Saudis attracted to the industry, whether from a culinary perspective or operations. And they're getting really good, and they're creative, and they're young. And so as they gain more experience in this field, I believe that they're going to really compete with international brands and start exporting brands, homegrown or Saudi cuisine, or homegrown non-Saudi cuisine, which is also part of the 2030 vision of exporting brands.
Yes,
Saudi.
it's part of the 20. It's a really, absolutely, it stands out in the vision. It's such a statement of ambition. So, Andrew, it's a little unfair to ask you about that, but what do you think needs to happen for those brands to be exported? Because you look at, on your desk must arrive some pretty impressive portfolios, right? Mm-hmm. And you make the call as to whether to take that brand to the next stage or not. What do you think that Saudi concepts need to do?
I think when tourists come here and experience the food, then it'll open the door that people actually understand what the cuisine is. And then I think the cuisine hasn't really been developed here that much. It's in families, it's tradition, so taking it to that higher level of quality and consistency and the ingredients and using the local ingredients that are found in Saudi. Once all that kind of comes together, I think that's when the opportunity happens that it goes maybe to London or New York or Milan or something like that, where Saudis and GCC people traditionally travel, and sort of opens the door that way. That's what I would imagine happening.
Right. Halim, you and I have talked in the past about taking a famous European chef, the best fish chef, we won't name him, in Europe according to the rankings, and take him to a Jeddah market to create a unique concept there. And that was one interesting route that we were taking. But what do you think? What concerns me is that Europe has hundreds of years of culinary tradition built from the agriculture up, right? And so Saudi has to kind of fast track to get into that stream, if you like. What do you think can happen to bring that forward? Is it the spirit of entrepreneurialism in the young that would drive that?
Yes, to an extent, but also I think we need to invest and develop our infrastructure in terms of local produce. Saudis are popular in producing dates, and we use that in many of our recipes. But then, if we wanna, try and brand ourselves and export our brands internationally, we need to invest and develop the agriculture industry in the kingdom and produce the freshest ingredients locally to support our homegrown restaurants, but also internationally.
All right. Hashim, we often look in our business as consultants, we're asked to benchmark, to compare. And then people say, what country, which city does Saudi copy? Is it London, Singapore, Bangkok, New York? Do you have any city that you think that Riyadh, Jeddah can learn from internationally?
Learn from, I believe.
Or follow or copy, or there's bits that they did well, the street markets of Singapore.
I'm a true believer of local content, and I believe that Saudi is, at least in the fine dining segment, now going through a lot of franchising, but I believe that down the line we're going to see a lot of local content, whether it's local operators developing their own concepts, and we're going to see more and more of that. I strongly believe that, again, the Saudis are very creative, and the franchising, now we see a lot of franchising in the fine dining, and as we all know, it's quite expensive.
You weren't tempted to look at that, or have you explored it?
I mean, we know how to do it, so we prefer to do it our own way.
Because when you see the fees, it must
Yes.
frighten you. Where does it go on the P&L, right?
The royalties and cost of operation are increasing. So I really truly believe that there's going to be a lot of homegrown and local content moving forward in Saudi Arabia.
The core contradiction, Hashim, has always been that a franchise that works in London, New York, do you cut and paste it and put it into Riyadh and Jeddah, really? Do you adapt it? Do you change it? And that, I think, is the paradox of franchising, that you've got this business formula that actually isn't proven in your market, and you're spending $1 million to get it, right?
And this is exactly one of the reasons why I feel that there is a lot of local operators that are going to develop their own concepts, because you're always restricted with certain guidelines, and some franchisees are more flexible than others, but in general, you really have to adapt to the market and their expectations and their requirements.
We could have had this conversation 10 years ago in UAE, and when Dubai was growing exponentially. But somehow the local entrepreneurs in the Emirates tended to stick with, they avoided fine dining high end. They stuck with gourmet burgers, gourmet coffee. We're seeing signs of that here. What transitions Saudis into the high end? I mean, you're in that, but there aren't many companies like Leylaty. Not an awful lot for the country the size that it is. So how do we transition into the high end for Saudi nationals?
I believe with experience, as the Saudi task force gets more exposed to the industry and they're really attracted to this sector now and gain more experience, we're going to see them start to develop their own concepts. I mean, it was fine dining concepts cost quite a bit, so if you're don't have that much experience, it's quite a risk. But I definitely see, as more Saudis get interested more and more to this field, that they'll definitely start to get into fine dining.
It's confidence, isn't it, as well? It's moving up the scale as well. I'm going to move to the Florida questions in a moment. Before that, I'm going to exploit Halim's age. I did it already once. I'm going to do it again. When you're hanging with your friends, I need to understand about food, because we see contrasting data about the role of eating out. How do you see eating out for your generation? Because I'm scared of your generation, to be frank, because they're hard to read in the future about how they're going to behave in a restaurant, if they behave, if you know what I mean, in a restaurant.
Well, I think the new generation are very picky when it comes to selecting the restaurant. I mean, we debate for hours what to select in terms of restaurant to go and choose. But I mean, some people or some of the new generation are more health conscious, so we have a lot of healthy options at the moment in Jeddah, for example. Some are more of thinking of sustainability, so they go where restaurants are using some of the more sustainable ingredients, sustainable materials in the restaurant. But I think for me and on my close group, I mean, we are looking for more experiential dining rather than just going, having a bite and then just leaving. So more of an fine dining or fast casual dining that is more experiential. I was just speaking with Hashim before we come into the stage. I visited Kuru 2 months ago, and at the time I did not know that it's a Saudi concept, that's non-Saudi cuisine. And then when you enter, with the staff, the chefs are greeting you in a Japanese style, and they're saying welcome, and you would not have thought that it's been developed by a Saudi company.
It's
so
cool,
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Kudos to you for developing such a concept. I mean, the experience, the food, the flavor profiles. I think Saudis have developed their flavor profile quite extensively in the past years, and they're more aware of what they like and what they don't like. So we are more experienced in this field.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. And this is obviously a Jeddah lobby. It took me this long to work out. We've got 2 guys from Jeddah here, and we're in Riyadh. Guys, any questions for us from the floor? Duncan Fraser-Smith in the black T-shirt. Needs no introduction.
Thank you, Stefan, and to the 3 esteemed gentlemen on the panel. That's been fascinating. I'd like to pick up a little bit on the locally sourced produce, if I may, because I think between the 3 of you on stage, there's over 6,000 registered farms across Saudi at the moment, and I'm curious to know what, across maybe the giga projects, Red Sea Global and NEOM, but as well with private enterprises, what is the focus on working hand in hand with these producers in order to bring more localized produce into the F&B scene, and specifically in the future, how we're going to see more varied produce available within Saudi restaurants and restaurants in general across the region?
What do you think, guys?
I can make a comment on that from Red Sea Global perspective. I think we're working with, it's not something I work on particularly, but it's about 2,000 local farmers in the area that we work with. And a big part of what we're trying to do is scale up the farming in the area, improve the technology, work with the farmers, and also source as much produce as possible for the hotels and the F&B operators from the local area. So that's really a key part of what we're doing within our organization.
You're matching that at NEOM, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, so in NEOM we have an entire sector dedicated to food. So we have a food sector in NEOM that's developing the latest technology in farming and just coming up with new partnerships. And I think the food sector is doing a great job with partnering with local farms within the Tabuk region, but also from outside the region in Riyadh and Jeddah and also Dammam. So I think, yes, the top priority is to partner and connect with the local farmers than to import from international markets.
I was just thinking back. I mean, Duncan, you and I go back a long way in the UAE, and every big project we're involved in the UAE did not include farms, did not include sustainability going back, and didn't include staff housing. And for each of your 2 projects, I know personally that one of the first things that NEOM and Red Sea and Amala before you did was staff housing. Make it good, make it the right standard to attract the right people, which is impressive.
It's really high quality, yeah, with all the facilities.
With their own F&B, right?
We'll have our own F&B and all the sports facilities and beach clubs, and it's a nice lifestyle. So when global people come and see the opportunity, even for their staff to come and work there, they see that, this is a resort-style environment for our staff to work in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions from the floor? James is doing that hand signal, which means no, don't take any more questions.
That's all we've got time for, unfortunately. Big round of applause to our panel. Thank you
very much.
Thank you.